First of all, what we're here today to talk about is the Regina Bypass questionable land deals. Particular in our case is around Tower Road, where we've talked about in the past has been around the GTH and the questionable land deals there. Our new, what we've just launched today, our advertising campaign is if you think that stinks, you're going to find a mountain of skunks over on Tower Road. We want to make a mention here specific to Tower Road's land transactions. Going to go over a brief history of what's transpired over there. You have lands that we're focusing here directly on lands that were purchased by Long Lake Investment Inc. And I've got the information. I sent that out to you. What it is, the property that was adjacent to John Fallman, who had owned approximately 500 lands along Tower Road. And in 2011, 2012, thereabouts, he sold it, I would say under duress, to Long Lake Investments. He had originally kept the land for the longest time in hopes that it would someday become part of the city development, which he was unfortunately told that that would not happen for at least the foreseeable future, which was interpreted to be about 25 years. In around 2011, unfortunately, the Fallmans had experienced a tragedy in the family. I won't mention it on here, but it weighed heavily on their minds, and they had held on to the lands. And because the fact that they were told that basically their land would be worthless and not developable in the next 25 years, they gave in and sold to Long Lake Investments. It is a mirror of what's happened over here on the west side of Regina at West Terra Developments. I'll send more information on that later today. In 2012, Murad and his partner started Long Lake Investment. In February 2012, they purchased over 500 acres from John Fallman and his family for approximately $12,500 per acre. There was a Stantec study from 2004 that equally weighted the Regina Bypass for Gravel Pit Road and Tower Road, so both of them seem to be great options. The parameters for Tower Road location was that it would take 40 years for the development to get to Tower Road. As we see today, 2016, 12 years later, that's not the case. It took 12 years for 40 years of development to happen. In or around 2012, the Triple M Group were commissioned to study the Regina Bypass only to go, and this is very key, only to go from Tower Road to Pinkie Road. This is key because the assertions from the government is talking about that the engineers decided upon Tower Road, and that is not the case. And we actually have litigation pending based on that information on itself, which is very concerning to us as taxpayers. The base case plan for the Regina Bypass was to be built on the west side of Tower Road, which would allow for the Regina Bypass to go north and south of Victoria Avenue, coming into the city to get to Ring Road. The 2004 Stantec studies clearly stated that only 15.1% of the traffic that will use the bypass by 2017 would be through traffic. The remainder would be city traffic. The industrial and commercial business district in the northeast part of the city would not be impacted. The Regina Bypass route at Tower Road north and south would be functional to get the majority of the truck traffic coming into the city and reduce traffic congestion coming into the city. Shell Flying J had purchased land at Tower Road and Victoria Avenue for a truck stop in or around 2005, and they tried to get the RM of Sherwood's approval for building a major truck stop there, but the city simply would not provide approval for servicing the lands. This was prior to being annexed. Aurora Retail then, which is Harvard Developments, purchased 141 acres of land from Shell Flying J in December 2012, and only months later then they were annexed into the city. Once again, Shell Flying J was told the same thing. The Fallmans and West Terra were told that they would not be developable for at least the next 25 years. We have a letter to Mayor Bruce Evans of White City that confirms this information, and it thanks him for being on the steering committee and that the base case was approved for building. All studies and open houses up to May 2013 approved the Regina Bypass route on the west side of Tower Road, which stood to be the base case for the review at a 4-day jam session in May of 2013. A meeting was held, and this is the key meeting, May 7th to 9th of 2013, where only certain landholders along Tower Road were invited, along with the Ministry of Highways and the consultants, to discuss the Regina Bypass route. 6 landowners who were to be severely impacted along the number 1 highway service road off of Tower Road were not invited. As a result of this May 2013 meeting, a new plan for the Regina Southeast Bypass was publicly introduced at the first open house in June of 2013. This moved the bypass route 400 meters to the east of Tower Road. By moving it there, it created a flawed, outdated, dysfunctional, expensive, dead-end bypass that could no longer go north of Victoria Avenue. where the majority of truck traffic actually goes. In 2013, the Southeast Community Plan was then born for malls and commercial development along the Regina Southeast bypass route along Tower Road. After annexation and commercial plans were unveiled, property values then for these impacted properties obviously had skyrocketed because of the annexation and because of the proposed developments. The Regina Southeast bypass needed 126 acres from Long Lake Investments that they purchased for between $80,000 and $90,000 per acre. Long Lake Investments made $9 million on this land alone. What influence did Long Lake have on the bypass route going down the middle of his property? Why didn't the highways purchase the land directly from the Fallmans for $12,500 per acre only months prior? They knew that the Regina bypass was going at Tower Road since at least 2001. Why didn't highways purchase that land from Shell Flying J for only $50,000 per acre as Aurora had purchased it, which instead of paying Harvard $287,000 per acre for only the 0.54 acres that they ended up needing? If highways had purchased these properties when they had an opportunity before the developers did, the Regina bypass could and would have been built as a functional bypass along Tower Road that could have gone north and south around the city. This bypass would have taken the majority of traffic around the city north and south directly to where they need to go. I will now open it to any questions you have. I apologize for reading the wrong statement. There was more information that I want to talk about today, but I hope that it gives you information based on what we've been able to attire over the last number of months. We've been working on this for myself personally as the Saskatchewan Taxpayers Advocacy Group, and I've joined forces, our group has joined forces with the Y Tower Road group because we feel that this issue has been unbelievably questionable in nature, and I think the taxpayers deserve to know. That's what we're here today, is basically put the call out to people so that they are aware of what's been transpiring, and we welcome them to come to our group we have a sworn affidavit that we have created as a blanket that they can sign on their own, or they can create their own and sign it and send it to the RCMP when we have the investigation filed. That's all I have to say.
What do taxpayers need to know? Just in a nutshell, like what do you, without going back to your list,
yeah.
What are you concerned about?
My biggest concern here is that we have people in positions of power, people in positions of public trust, shall we say, that have unduly influenced the purchase and acquisition of lands around the Regina area, for the Regina bypass particularly, with information that they would only be privy to with that knowledge in that office. The chief shareholder of Long Lake Investments, Murad Al-Khatib, is the board chair at the Regina Regional Opportunities Commission, otherwise known as Economic Development Regina. And that is a very key factor because they had a very strategic role in determining where the Regina bypass was being located and the GTH.
The Regina, so what's your understanding of how that would have worked? Like, what are you saying happened that?
From what we have been able to determine through our investigation and through the work of several others, is basically that in 2011, 2012, when Long Lake Investment was developed, it was known at that time by Murad. We allege that it was known at that time by Murad that he was able to influence the lands in that May 2013 private meeting to go over into the middle of his lands. His company and Harvard Developments were both allowed not only to attend this meeting, but to have significant influence in terms of where the bypass would be moved. Anybody with the right mind that can look out there, they're looking and they know it needs to be moved. Even they suggested that. Even major property owners in that area suggested that. They wanted it moved further east. But the only thing they didn't do was they didn't move it far enough. And the reason that we can attest to is that it wouldn't have made these people the money that they got.
How did you find out that the lands that are now owned by Harvard and Aurora were described as unserviceable for 25 years?
We've got that directly from the sources. It's in terms of Shell Flying J and the Fallmans. We are getting them to provide sworn affidavits to that effect, and we will submit that to the RCMP. But that is what has been told, and we also have that from former representatives of the RM of Sherwood as well.
Okay, how do you know that the Bauman's going under duress to sell?
By personal nature, some of our group are friends with them, and they had a good relationship with them, and they've had that discussions with them.
Where did you get the sales details information that you have in the report?
All from Information Services Corporation, all publicly available at no cost to taxpayers.
Okay. And are there minutes from the value engineering workshop?
I would hope there is. To this point, this is one of the issues that we've had, is that is information that has not been made public. I would imagine there would be. If it's a 4-day workshop of that sense, there would be some kind of form of keeping notes on what's been transpiring there, given that it is a government meeting. But as we've seen in the past, where we've only gotten public information slowly leaked out over the last several months, I think that's another situation where I think taxpayers need to demand that.
So then what leads you to believe that the decision was made to move the location during that meeting?
Because it says it straight in. I have that document. I can forward it on. It says it straight in that meeting that there was the base case, which was west of Tower Road, and then there was 3 other options, which all were basically 400 meters to the east. And it says it's clear as day in that meeting that they're in that several 100-page document. That's what transpired there.
What are you filing with the RCMP today?
We are filing a formal complaint based on behalf of the taxpayers of Saskatchewan, but obviously we can only do that on each of our own accords. But our complaint is that we feel that there was a breach of public trust from people in position of power that enabled people in that public trust to enrich themselves quite unjustly and quite massively. We're talking in the millions of dollars. The taxpayers of Saskatchewan are getting the shaft on this deal because they could have acquired those lands for far less money at the time, and these people are profiting heavily off of the back of taxpayers.
And when you say these people who are in positions of public trust, what are you referring to?
The one in particular is Murad Al-Khatib,
Okay, so
the chief shareholder of...
And his position of public trust was?
His position of public trust was the board chair since 2013 and the director since 2011 of the Economic Development in Regina, which is formerly known as Regina Regional Opportunities Commission.
And what would he have known in that position that he would have used to his own advantage?
Well, he would have known where the bypass was going to be located. Obviously,
You already said everybody knew that.
the general location, they knew that, but he also had inside information in terms of where the GTH, what was happening at the GTH. This is actually information...
The GTH is not.
No, it's not, but it's related. This is actually information directly from, kind of based on a counteraction from the government of Saskatchewan against Granite West Developments, where they're talking about him having undue influence on trying to acquire lands and reselling them. It's the exact same situation, just in a...
Okay, but
Yeah.
in this situation, because like, what did he know in his position of trust that he would have potentially used to his own advantage?
Well, I think the specific details need to come out in the investigation. I think what we're presenting here today is enough information based on the facts that we do know, that we have come available publicly, that can at least initiate an investigation. We've had all the provincial parties other than the governing one. We've had the federal NDP that have been all calling for a judicial inquiry. We haven't been granted that. So the next option is an RCMP investigation, which the federal leader, Thomas Mulcair of the NDP, has called for. So I think if he's saying that, I think it's about time that we paid attention. Thank you very much.